Detroit, Michigan, and I've lived in Indianapolis since 1990, so right around 21 years. And I came here to go, right after I was finished with my master's in American Histories. I came here to work for the Historic Landmarks Foundation of Indiana. And I'm interested in historic preservation, and work on restoration of historic resources was what brought me to Indianapolis, and that's kind of what kept me here. I've never enjoyed the suburbs. I suppose if you were to compare and contrast those different aspects of life, the city just seems so much more real to me. It's more honest. There's more people, there's more activity. And a lot of people don't really like that. They want to be away from people. There's a perception that the inner city is filled with crime, and certainly there is some aspect of that here, but that's not the way life is all the time. And you even find these kind of negative things in other places. People just don't want to acknowledge that. And I think the city is fascinating because of the amount of stimuli from the built environment. There's a variety of places. There's architecture from all periods. There's buildings that are in wonderful condition. There's places that are in terrible condition. I enjoy finding beauty and interest in places that are, you know, to the average person are considered ugly. I look at that as a challenge. I think that's fun. Well, I think history is important to all aspects of our culture. Today, you and I both are the sum total of all the people that have come before us. I learned things from my parents who learned things from their parents before them, and it goes on and on and on and back. And if you were to look at the city and the built environment and the resources, the cultural resources of the city, because people have been in this place for much more than 100 years, if you look at that as the sum total of the culture of Indianapolis, then being in the urban environment puts you in closer connection with that aspect, you might say with the whole culture of the community, much more so than you would be if you were removed in some place that was much more recently constructed. I think art is often found in unexpected places, and sometimes art can be something as simple as appreciating what someone has done, you know, with their house, like liking the way that they chose to paint the house, or liking something that they've done with their yard, or appreciating the garden that's planted and tended by a 90-year-old resident of the inner city. You know, that can all be a part of the expression of people's cultural values, and all of that is what I would consider to be art. So you find that an awful lot in the city. I think people are given a broad range of ability to express themselves in the city, maybe more so than they might feel in a suburban area where there is pressure to conform to standards of appearance and standards of behavior. Most of those things are pretty much erased in an urban area. People have very little expectation of how you should behave, or how you should look, or how you should, you know, comport yourself in your life. It's gives you a broad opportunity to do a lot of different things. So I think as you look around in the city, you'll find a lot of art. Sometimes the art is expressed in graffiti, or it's expressed in the way advertisements are designed, or it might actually be in public art that you find sculpture or other people's way of describing their environment or of expressing their thoughts. You find that a lot in the city, just walking down the street. A knowledge of the history of the community is a great way to understand the stories and the reason that this place is here, and the things that people have done here in the past. They can inform and enrich your appreciation of the way life is here today. So much more so than if you went to a place and did not have any interest in knowing about why that city was there, or who were the people that started it, or why is this street named in this, why does it have this name, or why do the houses look like this, or why are they, this close together as opposed to further apart, or there's all kinds of things that you can look at when you think about how the history of a place really is kind of a template through which, or a lens through which you can view a place and have a better understanding of the way it is. And a lot of times that can be expressed in the work of a particular artist, or it can be expressed in simply the cultural life of the city. Say, for instance, there are certain neighborhoods in Indianapolis that have a long tradition of being the home of one particular ethnic group or another. So I think that if you're going to make art that's particularly about a place, then you need to know what the history of that place is. And if you don't, then your art isn't really going to reflect those ideas. I like to make work that's not about me. Some people believe that art is simply a vehicle for personal expression. And to some extent, because of the things I choose to make work about, it certainly reflects my personal interests and my knowledge of something. I might be able to make a piece that touches on certain aspects of something, but might leave a lot of things out because I don't necessarily know everything about that. There's a lot of things I don't know about, and I try to, seek out new information all the time. But if you want to make work about a place, as I do, I don't necessarily want to make work that's about me. I like to make work that's about community and about the places that I've lived in and places with which I'm familiar. So that's how history works with the art that I make. I think history works with the art that a lot of people make as well, and sometimes in ways that they may not even be aware of. People that work in certain more traditional mediums like painting, sculpture, printmaking, all of those things have a really wonderful and rich tradition. Many artists have worked before to develop different techniques that are now the benefit of people that are practicing that work today. Even people doing very contemporary art forms, so like people making video or conceptual art. All of that comes from a place or a tradition out of art making that is something that I think is important for the artist to be aware of those things, to know from which you come and where these ideas have their origin. I think it's the humanity of a place that I look for. I also like to look for stories in things, and you can find that not just in the architecture, but in the very geography of a place. The way the city conforms to the bends in a river, or the way a stream runs through a particular area, the way people have created their houses and the commercial buildings, how the streets are laid out, just both the geography and the landscape of a city. All of these things are kind of what we refer to as the built environment. So every man-made thing in a city, and even the things that are not man-made, like trees and things that, a lot of the trees in an urban area are trees that were planted here by people, or they've grown up because they were brought, different species were brought from different places, or sometimes the weed trees, as we call them, their seeds are carried by the wind or by birds or animals or something. So it's fascinating to see how those different things come into a place, and to see how a city in the Midwest might be completely different from an older city in the South, or in the far West, or in the deserts of the mountain regions of this country. All of that is really fascinating, and I even like to see how, just walking around, you can often see the way people interact, or you see stories or hear about things. People going about their business, rushing back and forth from work to home, people who are at home, people who have no home at all. All of those people have stories and overheard snippets of conversation in restaurants or on the bus or at a street corner. Are often people get inspiration from that. That's often becomes the fodder for stories and novels and music, the sounds of the city. I love the wildlife in the city as well. well. There's kind of a wealth of birds and smaller animals, and we even have our share of, there's a herd of deer that live in Crown Hill Cemetery that people might not even be aware of. Occasionally they get out and run crazy down 38th Street and cause havoc that way. But there's also people that keep animals in their yards, chickens and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty fascinating when you start to actually study the amount of nature that exists in an urban area. It's amazing, and to me that is that's where you find beauty. I find beauty in all of those things, but I especially like to find things that are neglected and unappreciated. I like to rescue things. Like if I find something interesting in the trash, or if I see a really great old sign that no one has paid attention to, I like to take a photograph of it and share it somehow. There's a lot of different things that I like to do that touch on that aspect of being a hunter or a curator of interesting things in places where people thought there was nothing interesting.